Welcome. So you're gearing up for the NISM Series XA exam, or maybe you just want to get a solid grip on your personal finances. Well, you've come to the right place. In this explainer, we're going to break down all the foundational concepts from Chapter 1. We'll cover everything from what financial planning even is, all the way to how the pros do it. Let's dive right in. All right, so here's the game plan. We're going to start with the basics, the what and why of financial planning. Then we'll look at everything a good plan should cover. After that, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of assets, liabilities, and net worth, the building blocks of your financial life. Then we'll walk through the official 6-step process and wrap up by looking at how financial advice actually gets to you. It's all designed to build your knowledge from the ground up.
So let's kick things off with a big one. What exactly is financial planning? Now, you might think it's just about saving money or picking a few investments, but as you're about to see, it's a much, much bigger idea than that.
Just take a second and think about this. You could have a great job, bringing in good money, and you might be pretty good about putting some of it aside. But does that automatically mean you're set, that you're ready for whatever comes next? That's the exact question financial planning is built to answer.
Let's make this a little more real with an example right from the textbook. So, meet Vinod. On paper, this guy is crushing it, right? High income, saving 20% of it. He feels like he's got things under control. But here's the catch. Just saving money without a real plan can leave you way more exposed than you think.
And that brings us to the official definition. Now, the key word here, the one you really need to remember, is process. See, financial planning isn't a one-time thing. It's an ongoing process of managing your money to make sure you can cover not just today's bills, but also all those big goals you have for the future, like buying a house or, eventually retiring. And this is where you see the huge holes in Vinod's approach. Right now, his savings are just a pile of cash. A real plan would force him to answer these tough questions. Does he have an emergency fund? Is his family actually protected if something happens to him? Does he even know how much he needs to retire? Saving is just one piece of the puzzle. Planning is about putting all the pieces together. Okay, so if saving is just one piece of the puzzle, what do the other pieces look like? Well, that brings us to the full scope of financial planning. It's not just about one thing, it's a holistic view that touches on pretty much every part of your financial life. Everything, and I mean everything, starts with setting clear goals. Just saying you want to be rich is a nice dream, but it's not a plan. A plan needs real numbers. And, just as important, you have to prioritize. Maybe funding your kid's education has to come before that fancy new car.
So how do you turn those vague dreams into an actual plan? Professionals use a tool called the SMART framework. It's a system to make your goals specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So instead of save for retirement, a SMART goal sounds like this. I will build a retirement fund of 5 crores by the time I'm 60 by investing 50,000 rupees every single month. See the difference? One's a wish, the other's a roadmap.
All right, next up are 2 things that are absolutely non-negotiable in any good plan. First, cash flow management. That's just a fancy term for budgeting, making sure more money is coming in than going out, so you actually have money left over to invest. And second is insurance planning. This is your defense. It's the safety net that stops one disaster, like a big medical bill, from destroying years of hard work. And we're not done yet. A really comprehensive plan goes even deeper. It has to include debt management because bad debt, like credit card debt, can completely sink your financial ship. Then there's investment planning. This is the engine that's going to grow your money over time. And finally, tax planning, because every rupee you save in taxes is another rupee working for you. And to round it all out, the scope stretches way into the future. We're talking about retirement planning, which for most of us is the biggest financial goal we'll ever have. And then there's estate planning, which is all about making sure the wealth you build gets passed on to the next generation smoothly and efficiently. Okay, before we can build any of these plans, we need to know what we're working with. And that brings us to the 3 most fundamental terms in personal finance: assets, liabilities, and net worth. Pay attention here, because this is probably the single most important formula in all of personal finance. Your assets, everything you own, minus your liabilities, everything you owe, equals your net worth. This is your financial scorecard. It's not about how much you earn, it's about how much you're actually worth. You could have a huge income, but if you have huge debts, your net worth could be tiny or even negative. Now, your assets basically come in two flavors. You've got physical assets, stuff you can actually touch, like your house, some land, or gold. These can sometimes be tricky to sell quickly. And then you have financial assets. These are things like stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. Generally, they're much more liquid, which means you can turn them into cash pretty easily if you need to. And then, of course, you've got the other side of the coin, liabilities. Simply put, these are your debts. Your home loan, your car loan, that credit card balance. Every single liability is a claim on your future income because you've made a promise to pay that money back. Okay, so we have the building blocks. Now, how do the pros actually put it all together? Well, investment advisors follow a very specific, structured, 6-step process to create and manage a financial plan. And you should think of this process as a loop, not a straight line. It starts with step 1, establishing the relationship, basically setting the ground rules. Step 2 is all about gathering data. The planner needs to know everything about your finances and your goals. Step 3 is the analysis. They crunch the numbers and figure out where you stand right now. Step 4 is where they develop and present the actual plan. Step 5 is implementation. This is where you actually do the stuff in the plan. And step 6, which is absolutely crucial, is monitoring. A plan isn't static. Life changes, so the plan has to be reviewed and adjusted, which brings you right back to the beginning. So who are these people providing all this advice? Well, it's really important to understand that not all financial advisors are the same. They operate under different business models, and that can have a huge impact on the advice you get. The biggest difference really boils down to one thing: how they get paid. A fee-only advisor charges you a direct fee for their advice. That's it. They don't make any commissions from selling products, which means their interests are aligned with yours. On the flip side, an execution-only service or distributor makes their money from commissions when they sell you a financial product. This can create a conflict of interest. And finally, you have wraps and platforms, which are usually tech-based and charge fees for using their service. Knowing this is key to understanding whose best interests are being served. Whew. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground. So before we wrap up, let's boil it all down to the absolute must-know points from this entire chapter. Look, if you remember nothing else, burn these 5 things into your brain. First, planning is a process, not a project. Second, your goals have to be SMART. Third, net worth is the real score. Fourth, there's a formal 6-step process that works. And finally, always understand how your advisor gets paid. And I'll leave you with a question to chew on. We went through that 6-step process, right? From setting up the relationship all the way to monitoring the plan. In your opinion, which one of those steps is the most critical? Where does a plan succeed or fail? Give it some thought. Thanks for joining me.